You remember the exact weight of his hand on your shoulder? Marcus. The day you walked into that building for the first time, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit because you'd bought it at a thrift store and had it altered by your mother's friend who wasn't really a tailor but knew enough. The fabric pulled across your back when you reached for things. You were conscious of it constantly that first week. The way it marked you as someone who didn't belong yet. Marcus saw you standing in the lobby, studying the directory like it was written in a language you were still learning. He was heading out for lunch, could have walked past, should have walked past. That's what people did here, you would learn. But he stopped, asked if you were the new analyst. When you said yes, he told you to follow him, not to lunch, to his office. He spent 45 minutes explaining things no one else would have told you. Which managers actually read their emails. Which conference rooms had the good coffee. How to format your memos so Richard Chen would actually look at them instead of delegating them to his assistant to summarize. You didn't know then that Marcus was giving you a map to a territory that had destroyed people younger and hungrier than you. You just thought he was being kind. He was being kind. That was 7 years ago. Yesterday you walked past his office, smaller now, a move to the interior hall where there are no windows. And you didn't stop. You were on your way to a meeting. You were running 3 minutes behind. You had your laptop open, reading briefs as you walked. And you saw him through the glass, saw him see you. And something in your chest did a small, quiet thing that you chose not to examine. Your feet kept moving. Your eyes returned to the screen. You think about this now. Sitting in your new office on the 14th floor, watching the city arrange itself beneath you like something you've earned the right to observe from above. The glass is thick. The sounds of the street don't reach you. Nothing reaches you here unless you allow it to. The first compromise was so small, you didn't recognize it as a compromise at all. 2 years in. You'd climbed from analyst to associate, faster than anyone expected, because you worked in a way that made other people uncomfortable, not unethical, just relentless. But you answered emails at 3 a.m. You anticipated problems before they became problems. You learned to speak in the particular language of this place, confident, clipped, certain, even when certainty was the last thing you felt. There was a project, restructuring proposal for a manufacturing client. You'd done the foundational work, weeks of it, nights and weekends, the kind of labor that lives in spreadsheets no one will ever see. But the presentation, the moment when the work becomes visible, unless that was assigned to your team lead, Daniel. Daniel was fine, competent, the son of someone who knew someone. He had an ease about him that came from never having worn a suit that didn't fit, never having studied a building directory like it might bite him. He presented your work to the client. He presented it well, actually. And when the client praised the analysis, Daniel said thank you. Just thank you. No mention of the associate who'd built it. No acknowledgement of the nights you'd spent learning their industry from scratch because no one had taught you anything about manufacturing, and you refused to admit you didn't know. You said nothing. In the elevator afterward, Marcus was there. He'd been in the meeting, a senior consultant by then, still someone whose opinion mattered. He looked at you with something you didn't want to identify. Not pity. Worse than pity. Understanding. You should have spoken up, he said. It's fine, you told him. Daniel needed the win. I'll have other chances. You believed this. You believed it was strategy, not surrender. You believed that accumulating goodwill was its own form of currency, that Daniel would remember, that the system would eventually recognize the shape of your contribution, even if no one said your name out loud. You were wrong about Daniel. But you were right about the system. It did recognize you, not for the work you'd done, but for the silence you'd learned to keep. Your willingness to let the credit flow upward. Your understanding that visibility was allocated, not earned, and that patience was the price of admission. Marcus tried to talk to you about it a few more times. You started finding reasons to be busy when he approached. His concern felt like a weight you couldn't afford to carry. By year 4, you'd learned to stop noticing the things that used to bother you. The way junior analysts looked at you now. The same way you used to look at people like Daniel. The fear in their eyes that wasn't quite fear, more like a constant low-grade calculation. What does this person need from me? How do I become visible without becoming a target? You recognized the look because you'd invented it, or thought you had. It turned out everyone invented it, independently, inevitably. You stopped learning people's names as quickly. There were so many of them, cycling through, and most of them wouldn't last. The ones who would last, you could identify them within weeks. Something in the way they moved through the building, a certain efficiency of spirit, an ability to shed things that didn't serve them. There was a woman in your cohort, Elena, who'd started the same month as you. Different department. But you'd gone through orientation together, eaten lunch at the same anxious table for the first few weeks, before you both became too busy for lunch, before lunch became something you ate at your desk while reading reports. Elena had helped you once. A presentation you'd fumbled early on, before you'd learned to fumble in private. She'd stayed late to help you rebuild it. Ordered takeout. Made you laugh about something you can't remember anymore, except that you remember laughing, remember the relief of it, the feeling of being seen by someone who wasn't evaluating you. Year 4, Elena's department was restructured, downsized. The official term was right-sized, a word that made you feel slightly ill the first time you heard it, though you got used to it eventually. You got used to most things eventually. Elena was on the list. Not because she wasn't good, she was good. Everyone knew she was good. But because she'd made the mistake of being loyal to a manager who'd fallen out of favor, and loyalty, it turned out, was a contagion. It spread. It marked you. You heard about it before the official announcement. You heard about a lot of things before official announcements now. Your position had started to accumulate gravity, people orbiting you with information, hoping proximity would protect them. You could have said something. You knew people on the restructuring committee. You could have mentioned Elena's work on the Hoffman account, the way she'd saved a client relationship that everyone else had written off. You could have advocated. You didn't. You told yourself it wasn't your place. Because you told yourself it would look like favoritism, like you were protecting a friend, and that would undermine your credibility on future decisions that mattered more. You told yourself Elena would understand if she knew the full picture. You told yourself a lot of things. The day she cleaned out her desk, you were in a meeting, a long one. You'd scheduled it, actually, knowing she'd be leaving around that time. When you came back to your office, there was a sticky note on your door, her handwriting, which you still recognized. Thanks for everything. You couldn't tell if it was sincere or an accusation. You chose to read it as sincere. You threw it away before you could change your mind. The thing about climbing is that you stop looking down. Not because you're afraid of heights, because looking down takes time, takes energy, takes a particular orientation of the neck and spine that you can no longer afford. Your eyes are trained upward now. On the next rung, on the hands above you, whose grip is loosening, who might be pulled down, who might create space. You learn to see opportunity in other people's failures, not to celebrate them. That would be crude, and you are not crude. But to notice them, to position yourself nearby when someone stumbles, to be ready with a steady hand that looks like support but functions as replacement. Year 5, you make director. The announcement comes on a Thursday. There's a small gathering in the conference room. Champagne that no one really drinks, a cake that gets photographed more than eaten. People shake your hand. People say things like well-deserved and saw this coming and you've worked so hard for this. Marcus is there. He's still a senior consultant, the same level he was when he first stopped you in that lobby. You realize, with a clarity that feels almost medical, that he's never going to climb higher. That something in him, the same thing that made him stop for a stranger in a bad suit, has prevented him from making the compromises that climbing requires. He shakes your hand. His grip is exactly the same as it was 7 years ago. Warm, genuine, present. Proud of you, he says. You say thank you. You mean it. You think you mean it. But later that night, alone in your apartment that has gotten larger and quieter with each promotion, you find yourself thinking about that word. Proud. What it implies. A connection, a continuity, a sense that your success is somehow his success, that the rope between you still holds tension. You feel something loosen in your chest, a rope going slack. You don't call him that weekend like you used to. You don't call him the weekend after that. The pattern of your communication, already fraying, finally breaks, and the silence that replaces it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like efficiency. By year 6, honor, your vocabulary has changed in ways you don't notice until you hear yourself speaking. Human capital, value extraction, synergistic reduction. Words that used to sound like satire in your mouth now feel like precision tools. You deploy them without irony because irony is inefficient. Because the people above you don't speak in irony. Because to rise is to adopt the language of those who have already risen. You stop saying people in meetings. You say resources or headcount or, when you're feeling generous, the team. The abstraction isn't cruelty, or it doesn't feel like cruelty. It's clarity. It's the ability to see systems instead of faces, to make decisions that the version of you in the thrift store suit could never have stomached. That version of you would have been paralyzed, would have gotten stuck in the particulars, in the human weight of each choice, would have spent so long considering the feelings of everyone affected that the window for action would have closed. You can't afford paralysis. You can't afford that kind of sight. There's a junior associate now who reminds you of yourself. You don't learn his name for 3 months, even though he works directly with your team. When you finally learn it, Kevin, or maybe Kyle, something with a K, it's because he's made an error significant enough to require your attention. The error isn't catastrophic. It's the kind of mistake that comes from inexperience, from trying too hard, from caring about the wrong details. The kind of mistake you made, probably, in your first year. The kind of mistake Marcus would have quietly corrected, would have turned into a teaching moment, would have used to build trust. You don't do that. You send an email, CC his manager and the department head. Most you frame it as flagging a process gap, which sounds helpful but functions as exposure. You know what this email will do to his standing, to the way people look at him in meetings for the next several months. You know because you've seen it happen to others. You've learned to read the subtle shifts in institutional regard. You send the email anyway. Later, you tell yourself it was necessary. that coddling junior staff creates dependency, creates weakness, and that the kindest thing you can do for someone is show them the real stakes early. You tell yourself you're not being cruel, you're being honest. You're preparing him for the world as it is, not as it should be. The part of you that knows this is rationalization has grown very quiet. You can barely hear it anymore. When it speaks, you've learned to turn up the volume on everything else. The meeting with the restructuring committee is on a Tuesday. You're in the room now, not as a subject, but as a voice. One of 11 people who will decide the future of 200 others. The spreadsheet in front of you is dense with names and numbers, with performance metrics and salary bands and tenure calculations. Each row is a person. You know this. You also know that thinking of them as people will make the next 3 hours unbearable. So you don't. You look at the numbers. You make arguments based on efficiency, on strategic alignment, on the language you've learned to speak so fluently that it no longer feels like a second language. It feels like the only language. Halfway through the meeting, someone mentions the consulting division. Senior staff. The list of names to be reviewed includes Marcus. You feel nothing. This is not a performance. You are not suppressing a reaction. There is simply nothing there to suppress. The rope that went slack in year 5 has been cut entirely now, when the frayed end has been cauterized so cleanly that you can't even feel the scar tissue. His numbers are fine. His performance reviews are consistently positive. But there's a term someone uses, growth ceiling, that lands in the room like a verdict. Marcus has reached his growth ceiling. His skills are valuable but not evolving. He's taking up space that could be used for someone hungrier, someone still climbing. You could speak. You could mention the intangible things that don't show up on spreadsheets, the way he mentors without being asked, the institutional knowledge he carries, the cultural continuity he represents. You could say that not everything valuable is measurable, that efficiency without wisdom is just speed toward the wrong destination. You don't speak. The silence you keep feels familiar. It feels like the silence you kept in that elevator with Daniel. The silence that became your strategy. Except now the silence isn't about protecting yourself. Now the silence is about protecting your position, which has become the same thing, which has always been the same thing. You just couldn't see it before. His name moves from one column to another. The transition is so small, a click of a mouse, a cell highlighted in yellow. But you understand that this click is the difference between his life continuing in one direction or fracturing into uncertainty. You watch it happen. Your face is neutral. Your hands are still. When the meeting ends, you go back to your office. You sit at your desk. The city is still there beneath your window, still arranged like something you've earned. Your reflection in the glass is faint, translucent, a ghost of a person overlaid on a landscape of buildings and money and motion. You think about calling him, warning him, giving him time to prepare, to find something else, to soften the landing. You think about it for almost 30 seconds. Then you open your laptop and begin reviewing the notes for tomorrow's presentation. There's a lot to do. There's always a lot to do. Year 7. Your office moves again. Higher floor, more glass. The coffee is better here, though you've stopped tasting it. Marcus left 4 months ago. You heard about it secondhand, from someone who didn't know you'd once been close, who mentioned it casually. Did you hear about Marcus? The consulting guy? Yeah, when he landed somewhere. Some nonprofit, I think. Smaller pond, smaller pond. The phrase stuck with you for almost an hour. Then you forgot it. You've been forgetting a lot of things lately. Not important things, not numbers, not names that matter, not the details of your strategic initiatives. You've been forgetting the other things. The weight of a hand on your shoulder. The feeling of laughing with someone who wasn't evaluating you. The texture of a friendship that existed before the climbing began. You dream sometimes about that first day. The lobby, the directory, the suit that didn't fit. In the dream, no one stops for you. You stand there, studying the names and floor numbers, and people stream past in both directions. And you understand that you are invisible, that you will remain invisible, that visibility is allocated, and no one has allocated any to you. You wake from these dreams relieved. You wake grateful for everything you've become. The gratitude feels real. You test it sometimes, probing at it the way you'd probe a suspicious number in a spreadsheet. Is it genuine? Are you actually glad for the path you've taken, the person you've become? Or is the gratitude just another story you tell yourself, another rationalization layered over a loss too large to look at directly? You can't tell anymore. The machinery of self-examination has rusted shut. You no longer have access to the parts of yourself that could answer that question honestly. This doesn't bother you. That's the part that would have bothered you once. There's a new analyst on your floor. You don't know her name. She reminds you of someone, but you can't quite place it. Something in the way she moves, a certain tension in her shoulders, a vigilance in how she watches the people around her. She's still learning the language of this place, but you can see it in her emails. Too many words, too much explanation, not yet understanding that brevity is its own form of power. She's been watching you. You can feel it, the way you can feel most things now, not as emotion, but as information, as data points to be processed and filed. She's watching you the way you once watched Marcus, trying to learn, trying to find a map to this territory. You could help her. The thought arrives unbidden, a fragment from some earlier version of yourself. You could stop her in the hallway. Spend 45 minutes explaining which managers actually read their emails. Show her the pattern of this place, the secret architecture that determines who rises and who stays pinned in place. You could give her what Marcus gave you. You're in the elevator when the thought completes itself. She's there too, 3 feet away, holding a stack of folders that look like the kind of folders you used to carry, thick with the work that lives in spreadsheets no one will ever see. She glances at you. There's a question in her eyes, not quite spoken, but present. An opening, a small human moment where connection is possible. The elevator reaches your floor. The doors open. You walk out without looking back. You don't have time. You have a meeting. You have a career to protect. You have a ladder to climb. And the rungs beneath you have started to disappear the moment you leave them. And if you look down now, you don't look down. You've forgotten how. The apartment is quiet when you get home. It's been quiet for years. But tonight the silence has a texture you haven't noticed before. It's the silence of all the conversations you're no longer having. All the phone calls you've stopped making. All the people whose names have faded from your memory like writing in sand. You pour yourself a drink. You stand at the window. The city is still there, still arranged beneath you, but something has shifted. The view that used to feel like achievement now feels like distance. The height that used to feel like safety now feels like... You don't complete the thought. You take a sip of your drink instead. It's a good drink. Expensive. The kind of drink you couldn't have afforded in the thrift store suit days. Somewhere in this city, Marcus is probably sleeping. Or working, maybe, at his smaller pond, not doing whatever people do when they've been pushed off the ladder they were climbing. You wonder if he thinks about you. You wonder if he blames you. You wonder if he knows your silence in that meeting, if word traveled, if he's put together the shape of what you didn't do. You wonder, for one long moment, if he's happier now. The thought is dangerous. You feel it moving through you like a virus, threatening to infect the carefully constructed logic of your life. If Marcus is happier, if smaller ponds and fewer rungs and actual human connection lead to something that looks like peace, then what does that say about everything you've sacrificed? You set down the drink. You turn away from the window. You don't let yourself answer the question. You've gotten very good at not answering the questions that matter. It's a skill, like any other. You've practiced it every day for 7 years. Tomorrow, there will be another meeting. Another set of names in a spreadsheet. Another opportunity to speak or stay silent, to remember or forget, to reach down a hand or keep climbing. You already know what you'll choose. You've been choosing it so long that it doesn't feel like choice anymore. It feels like gravity. It feels like the only direction available, up and up and up. Even as the air gets thinner and the faces below become indistinguishable, and the person you used to be recedes into a memory you're no longer sure is real. There was a version of you that would have been horrified by this. That would have recognized the shape of what you've become and felt something break inside. That version exists now only as a faint signal, easily ignored, easily explained away. You get ready for bed. The sheets are expensive. The mattress is good. You sleep soundly most nights, the sleep of the successful, the sleep of those who have learned to quiet the parts of themselves that cause trouble. But tonight, just before you drift off, a thought surfaces. Unprompted, unwelcome. The first time Marcus helped you, you were nobody. You had nothing to offer him. There was no strategic value in his kindness, no future favor he was banking, no transaction being completed. He helped you because you were standing in a lobby looking lost, and he had the ability to make you less lost, and that was enough. That was enough. You fall asleep before you can follow the thought to its conclusion. In the morning, you won't remember it. You'll wake up and shower and dress in clothes that fit perfectly and commute to a building you know by heart. You'll walk past people without seeing them, and make decisions without feeling them, and climb another rung on a ladder that has no top, only higher. And somewhere far below, in a part of yourself you no longer visit, a hand will still be extended, waiting, patient, hoping against evidence that you might remember how to reach for it. You won't. You've climbed too high to reach that far down. And even if you could, even if the hand were still there, still warm, still genuine, you're no longer sure you'd recognize it. You're no longer sure you'd want to. The city sleeps beneath your window. The ladder stretches above you, infinite and empty. And you lie in your expensive bed, in your quiet apartment, alone in exactly the way you've earned the right to be. This is success. This is what you wanted. You're almost certain of it.